Doing great. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay,
Good to be with you.
good to be with you as well. We're going to talk about two or three different topics, but you just got back from England, and I understand you had a great time at the GAFCON conference. How'd that go?
Yeah, we had a really fine meeting. This is the first time that GAFCON has been able to pull together a conference. I think you know that we were able to begin to staff a London
Hmm.
office this past fall. And as a result of that staffing, we're actually able to carry forward some things for the Fellowship of Confessing Anglicans, which of course is known as GAFCON when it meets as a conference, a Global Anglican Future Conference. We had a primates council meeting for parts of 3 days preceding the 5 day encounter leadership conference in London.
Now, what does GAFCON's future look like right now? Obviously, we're in a brand new time. There's going to be a new archbishop chosen before December, and how does that work into what GAFCON is going to be doing?
Well, it was Bishop Michael Nazarali who commented once the covenant failed in the Church of England that the Jerusalem Declaration really was the only way forward. And I think that assessment is accurate. Indeed, if we're going to have a basis on which to rebuild the communion, that basis needs to be confessional. GAFCON, the declaration that was adopted by the Global Anglican Future Conference back in June of 2008, really is a classic statement of what Anglicans have always believed. It's a contemporary form of it, but it's the scriptures, the three creeds, the councils, the book, the 1662 prayer book, the ordinance, all those things that are the basis of any way forward.
Now, since last summer, you've been dealing with a new issue, well, maybe not totally new, but with the AMiA and their relationship with Rwanda. You went to North Carolina and had a great conference there where you got to meet with the Archbishop of Rwanda. What is the current situation with AMiA bishops, and I know it's a very fluid situation and it changes from day to day, but what's going on today?
Well, there's really been a trajectory of a couple of
Hmm.
years, and as I look at it, it's a sad trajectory. It's a direction that that is really not the Anglican mission at its best. You'll recall in the spring of 2010, the Anglican Mission in the Americas, particularly through its leader Chuck Murphy, determined that there'd be a level of separation from the Anglican Church in North America. Indeed, at the time it was said that the bishops of Rwanda were requiring it, the canons demanded it, that the Anglican Mission could only be in one province. And so uh, moving from jurisdictional participation in the Anglican Church in North America, they became a ministry partner. Their bishops were removed from our College of Bishops, and any real point of contact with the Anglican Mission was through a very small representation as a ministry partner in the provincial council, and all the contact with the bishops of the Anglican Mission was requested to only work with Bishop Chuck
Hmm.
Murphy. As you know, that arrangement lasted about a year, and it was in June of 2011 that there began to be the talk of a missionary society, and the process there. By the time we got to December of 2011, it looked much like what had happened with the Anglican Church in North America. That is, from June to December, the Anglican Mission went from being, as they used to say, fully embedded in the canons of Rwanda to not being in the canons of Rwanda at all, and in fact being part of Rwanda. Indeed, those unhappy exchanges in late November and early December between the the province in Rwanda and the Anglican Mission that finally resulted in the Anglican Mission bishops, with the exceptions of Bishops Glenn and Barnum, resigning from Rwanda.
So
That's the trajectory to the
yeah.
end, and I think that in some ways that continuing trajectory away from the provinces where the Anglican where the Anglican Mission had been connected, had been integrated, had been a full part of that, where we see less and less that integration and less that connection.
Yeah, it's obviously strange to watch how that happened, and it came as a surprise to me. Probably maybe not so much to you, but now there's some type of pseudo relationship with the Congo. But what everybody really wants to know is what's the status of AMiA bishops? And there's been a couple of deadlines set, and there's been rumors, and this is why we're tackling this subject, that some of the AMiA bishops were going to move into ACMA, some were going to go into Congo, but nobody from the AMiA side or the Congo side is talking. And if you could clear that up for me, that would help a lot.
Again, I think there are two parts of your question. One has to do with the Congo announcement, that relationship, and another has to do with how that announcement is being received and being responded to those who've been part of the Anglican Mission. I think folks will recall that it was on April 13th that there was a statement from the chairman, a statement that AMiA would receive cover under the Anglican province of the Congo. This came as a great surprise to almost everyone. As we know from previous statements, and to be fair to the Anglican Mission, they had said that they were looking for their provincial options, but every indication, at least in terms of what leaders were saying, was that they were going to return to life in North America and to relationship in North America. Indeed, the announcement of separation from Rwanda back in December had been an announcement that it was time to move back to North America. It was no longer appropriate to be embedded in Africa and so on and so on. So the Congo announcement seemed quite a surprise, even I think to many of the leadership. The notion, again, for many of those who have remained in the Anglican Mission, as opposed to having separated in what's now become known as PAIR USA, the Province de l'Église de Rwanda, USA, as opposed to that group, the folks who've been in the Anglican Mission, many really have wanted to be integrated in the American province, in the Anglican Church in North America. And so the unhappiness, I think, that began to be expressed in many quarters was an unhappiness that I think challenged some of the Anglican Mission bishops to make contacts to see if there might be a way for the Anglican Church in North America to make provision. And of course, when we were asked, we said, well, of course. I mean, our vision, the vision that we've all had since the Common Cause days, was of a biblical, missionary, and united Anglicanism in North America. And so anything we could do to help to reunite the Anglican Mission, or elements of the mission, with us back here in North America seemed right.
Yeah, and we noticed that you've kept to the stipulation of healing wounds and restoring relationships. in your initial letter back before Christmas, you put that forward as, in Advent, we're asking that any final solution would have these elements to it.
There were three elements of that letter on the 20th of December that I wrote to the whole church in terms of the concern everyone had about what would happen to the fractured elements of AMiA, how would we put things back together. And insofar as the Anglican Mission was concerned, I stated three things that would have to be dealt with. One, of course, was reconciliation of relationships, and that means really going deep with one another. The separation of the Anglican Mission from its jurisdictional status with the ACMA in the spring of 2010 produced many wounds. Then the separation of the Anglican Mission from Rwanda produced many more wounds, both domestically in the very visible split, PAIR USA and the AM, and global wounds in terms of the Anglican Mission with Rwanda. We said, we've got to get some of that right. We've got to deal with that. That indeed was something that Archbishop Eliud Wabukala tried to follow up with in the two conferences that he called in Africa, trying to deal with the relationship between the Anglican Mission, those who were staying with the leadership from Wallis Island, and with the province in Rwanda. The result of those two meetings was I think some further pain, in which the Anglican Mission actually, in the Johannesburg meeting, actually used the words, "It's time for a divorce." Rwanda has, in a sense, agreed to set the Anglican Mission free, but still, all of this is a great unhappiness, even a scandal in the body of Christ. So the first thing was reconciliation, and there's still much to do. We're still not where we need to be. The second issue that letter spoke about was a need for a change of leadership. We think the Anglican Mission in the Americas really for these last 2 years has been going in a direction that's not a direction that God can bless. Again, if the vision he's given is true, it's a matter of being together here, separated here. And so how was the mission going to, how is it going to take itself in a new direction? And that probably, as that letter suggested, meant some new leadership. But then thirdly, in that letter, we talked about jurisdiction, and any church body that has bishops and clergy and congregations and ordinations, that's a jurisdiction. You can call it anything you want. You can call it a missionary society if you want to do that, but that's not classically what it is. Classically, it's a jurisdiction.
Right, because I don't think missionary societies have bishops, if I remember correctly.
Again, missionary societies may have bishops in leadership. Take, for instance, the CMS in England, right, which has our former assisting bishop, Henry Scriven. But he doesn't function as a bishop, except as he's asked by a bishop of jurisdiction to function. So there's that issue. What is emerging, I think what is getting clearer now, is that the Anglican Mission is moving in a direction in which it fully intends to have bishops and clergy and congregations, intends to have a group of former archbishops as its consultors, calling itself a missionary society, but actually having all the characteristics of a jurisdiction. And the moment of decision is at hand. We're separated from the Anglican Church in North America, separated from Rwanda, And now with temporary jurisdiction in Congo, and while the things have not been clear in statements, I think maybe the mission has made, things are quite clear in Congo that this is only a temporary arrangement. Before very long, again, if the temporary arrangement with Congo is not fully supported by the church in Congo, and there'll be a meeting of the College of Bishops in Congo in June, and all those bishops will have to come behind it for it to be continued. We could very soon be in a position in which the Anglican Mission is not part of any Anglican province. And that really will have it in a position that looks much more like a continuing church than like part of the Anglican family.
Well, that seems to be the unintended consequences of these actions over the last 6 months. Is nobody wants you anymore if this is the way you're going to act. Let's get back to the AMiA.
Let me just say something. Nobody wants you anymore. I think the reality is, as the Anglican Mission went through the separation from ACMA in the spring of 2010, I mean, I was so direct as to implore Bishop Murphy and Archbishop Kallsen not to do this.
I remember, yeah.
He was not going to be blessed by God because it's not where he wanted things to go. And then you'll recall in the public letters, or the letters that were made public from Rwanda to the Anglican Mission, they implored the mission not to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that we haven't wanted to find a way. Indeed, the purpose of my letter in December was to try to find a way and to set out clearly at the start what the requirements would be. If you're going to be a jurisdiction, then you have to come in as a jurisdiction. You have to be related to our Constitution and canons. If you're going to be a missionary society, that's great. You can be a missionary society, but you can't have bishops and congregations and ordinations and all of the things that are classic for a church jurisdiction. We tried to spell that out in order that it could be clear what it would take. And I think until just very recent days, we believed that the Anglican Mission was trying to come back into relationship with the Anglican Church in North America. But the move to Congo and the things that have surrounded it, and indeed the bishops who have spoken, some of our bishops who have been Anglican Mission bishops, make it clear that really that the Anglican Mission is moving somewhat erratically, and again is disintegrating further. The great disintegration in the fall that became PAIR USA, and now a further fracturing as the move to Congo is not widely applauded here in North America. And it's not that Congo isn't applauded, it's just that everybody who's here in North America ought to be part of the church in North America.
Now, some AMiA bishops want to be a part of ACMA, and they're doing that through bishops in their locations, ACMA bishops in their locations jurisdictionally. Are we going to have public announcements of what AMiA bishops are coming into ACMA soon?
Yeah, again, there was a task force that had been appointed actually following the December meeting here in Pittsburgh, where Bishop Murphy and some of the leaders of the Anglican Mission met with me and a couple of key bishops from my cabinet, Leonard Riches and Charlie Masters. We actually put together a task force to ACMA bishops, to AM bishops, and the purpose was to find a way forward to reintegrate the Anglican Mission in the ACMA. What eventually emerged out of it was approaches to those bishops to say, can you find a way for us to be covered temporarily under ACMA rather than covered temporarily under Congo? And it's out of that that these developments have come. And the shape, again, because we wanted to honor the temporary request, again, as this began, the purpose was to help the Anglican Mission to get to a place where it was clear about what it wanted to be, since it seems to be so much an unfolding story or an unstable picture, seeming first one thing and then another thing. What was worked out was an arrangement by which, and this was fully approved by not only by me but by the primate in Rwanda, that bishops could be taken on as assistant bishops or assisting bishops in the diocese in which they were functioning. Mm-hmm. That assisting bishops are not those who are automatically made a part of the College of Bishops in ACMA. For instance, I've just called, as most folks are aware, I've called Frank Lyons to be my assistant bishop here in Pittsburgh. He's not a member of the College of Bishops until he's voted into membership. So this is a way for Anglican Mission bishops to have cover, agreed that that the congregations and the clergy that they've been leading or individually responsible for as part of their networks, that they could follow them in this temporary cover. We do this for 6 months. Again, while the Anglican Mission was trying to get clear about, was it going to be a missionary society? Was it going to be, have the characteristics of a continuing church? What was it going to be? And we provided this in a kind of gracious way just to make space and room and to allow people to actually have North American cover rather than cover from another province.
So to clarify, those bishops who do not want to move into Congo directly have temporary oversight from the Anglican Church here in North America.
Yeah. Again, the Congo move was again initially talked about as a temporary move. I think there's some now who are talking about it as a more permanent move. For us, we were trying to provide a way. How do we honor the freedom of these bishops and these congregations in the Anglican Mission? The Anglican Mission might redeem itself, might find a way, might find a way to be part of the Anglican Church in North America. I mean, if so, we want them to be able to choose us. We're not trying to force anybody into relationship with us. What we want to, again, when we write about reconciliation for the restoration of relationships, we're also writing about, we have to do our part. So what could we do to help? That was the question our bishops were asking and talking with some of the AM bishops. Again, the possibility 6 months from now, according to the agreement that the task force hammered out, is that the agreement might be extended, or maybe we'll be at the point where those bishops and congregations want to join the Anglican Church in North America, and we'd go through the process that would help to restore all the relationships.
So
everything right, and then again, each of the bishops, if they wanted to be to our College of Bishops, they'd have to be elected to the college, and each one would be on an individual basis in terms of local congregations and local clergy. They, of course, would petition to be part of the local diocese. And again, there's a lot that's unknown. We were trying to do something that didn't, answer all the questions, but gave a graceful place for folks who said, please, it's not so good for us, it's not working so well for us to continue in a foreign province. We'd rather have cover under an American province.
And so temporary was by request, but your desire is for those who want...
Desire is what it's always been.
Yes.
Remember the Common Cause Declaration,
yes.
to the Archbishop of Canterbury in June of 2004. We make common cause, and Chuck Murphy was one of the signers. I mean, interestingly enough, Leonard Riches was one of the
I
signers
know,
at the
that's
time.
right, yeah.
Keith Ackerman, David Anderson, so it was organizations and jurisdictions, and very quickly Canada came into it. We said we'd make common cause for the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we'd make common cause for a biblical, missionary, and united Anglicanism in North America. I believe that's the vision God's given, and everything that serves that is going to be blessed, and things that don't tend to that end aren't going to have God's favor.
Speaking of God's favor, let's move on from AMiA and from GAFCON. Let's go on to what's coming up in June. We're having an assembly in North Carolina. Tell me, you made the charge at the inauguration of ACMA to plant 1,000 churches. And I see the good news all the time. We're planting more and more churches. How close are we coming to that goal? And what do you see as some of the big progress that will be made by this June?
Well, as you know, we're in the midst of a transition. The Anglican 1000 movement was, I think, so successful that it became clear to the chairman, Dave Roseberry, that the best thing for us to do was actually to move the effort into the provincial offices, not to centralize the effort, far from it, but to center it. And to just put it absolutely in the center of the lifeblood of the province. Best guess, we've got somebody who is an interim administrator for Anglican 1000. So we're still running Facebook and Twitter and keeping the website current, trying to keep the count of congregations current. Best guess when we had the summit in March was that we were at about 250 congregations, so 1/4 of the way to 1,000 congregations. We're, of course, we're almost 3 years into this, so we got some heavy lifting to do. Church planting is, of course, geometric rather than arithmetic, so it increases. While I was in London, I had 2 people contact me from my own diocese telling me about new churches. One, interestingly, called Ex Cathedra. You can guess which congregation.
That's good. I like that.
Has more miles to go than you could possibly imagine. And another in one of our Ohio River communities. But it just moves faster and faster. This week we begin some of the interviewing process for folks who put forward their name for a vicar for Anglican 1000. So we're gonna move this forward. It really is our signature piece. As Dave Roseberry used to like to say, we really have changed the subject. It's not just new congregations since 2009, but in fact, many of our existing congregations are all fired up about this and really see that reaching North America with the transforming love of Jesus Christ is what we're about, and that congregations are the way to do it, both the ones that we were blessed with from an historical perspective and the ones that are now being birthed by the churches that have been a part of our life.
You and I have had this conversation before, that you judge the growth on adult baptisms, and that's just taking off in your church.
Well, we were astounded, reported at last year's provincial council meeting. We have a provincial council every year, which is the small group, the bishop, one priest, and 2 lay people from each of our dioceses. We were astounded that we had nearly an equal number of adult baptisms to the baptisms of those under the age of 16, which is a real sign that you're reaching people who haven't been Christians before. So 50% of baptisms were of adults. I mean, we thought someday we'd reach that. We were stunned.
Those
in our first statistics.
Those are first century numbers. I think it's an awesome statistic of.
It's a wonderful statistic. So that's, again, you do that through congregations. You do that through congregations that are trying to reach populations
that aren't being reached. And so, I mean, this has just been such a blessing and such a sign of God's favor. I mean, it's not the only thing we're doing. Obviously, we've had tremendous blessing in ecumenical relationships. Just recently, the first statement that came out of the Missouri Synod dialogue, Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, never had a dialogue with any other body other than Lutherans. I mean, this is a stunning achievement, and they initiated it. We didn't, and it's been true with the Orthodox churches. We have wonderful relations with the Catholic Church. I mean, all this is a sign of the rest of the Christian world who's serious about the faith once delivered to the saints, once for all delivered, recognizing in us what Anglicans were always supposed to look like. So this is another sign of this favor. But you know, you could go on and on down the list. What's happening with the Anglican Relief and Development Fund? They're having a trustees meeting this week here in Ambridge. Interestingly enough, 3 members of the board of the brand new Anglican Relief and Development Fund Australia were in the GAFCON meeting in London. The idea of this objective philanthropy has become so attractive that other nations are beginning to say, can we be part of this? So we're going to have a lot to report that's quite remarkable. Maybe one thing, Kevin, that that maybe sort of draws back to GAFCON and to the leadership conference in London. I learned while I was in London that we'll have, I mean, believe it, we'll have 10 primates at our provincial assembly.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they just kept coming up to me saying, I'm coming, you know, I want to come. Part of it is because the global trustees of ARDF will be there, and the global trustees represent both Global Anglican Future primates and also primates like Munir Nice, and Henry Isingoma, who are not at present GAFCON FCA primates. But so, I mean, in terms of the Anglican world, we really, that's a wonderful affirmation of what we're doing and who we are, and that in some measure what we represent really does sort of signal to the world the resurgence of Anglicanism here. I mean, we're just amazingly grateful and thankful, and it's not that we've done this, and this is something God's done. Only He could have done this at this level, and you know, in the face of all these obstacles. And if you look at all of that alongside of this tragic fracture of the Anglican mission, you get perspective. Again, the Anglican mission was, in terms of the last decade or dozen years, you know, it was first out, and it had the vision of planting churches, and that's the way we reach America, and it was all the things that we've become.
Yeah, at one time it was a shining star. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, again, my prayer continues to be for its restoration, for its return to being what it was called to be. And part of what it was called to be was at one with all the rest of us. But I'm not so sure that that's how it's going to turn out.
No, well, you know, God is faithful to what He's doing, and He's doing something in America. And I'm so honored, and I'm honored that, you know, you and I are allowed to be a part of this. You know,
yeah. Well, I appreciate this time, and maybe one final thing I'd say about the GAFCON FCA movement. There are 8 primates right now. I would not be surprised that by the time we meet in the Global Anglican Future Conference 2, the second one in May of 2013, that we weren't a dozen.
Wow.
So
I don't suppose you're going to drop any names for me.
No, I'm not going to. But again, I would have real reason to believe that might be
That's
so.
wonderful. That is truly amazing.
We're not trying to, we're not trying to um, exclude those who aren't ready to make that kind of confessional commitment. We're just trying to strengthen the whole communion and provide a kind of way forward, which is this confessional way, and out of the unity that comes from confession of Jesus Christ, true God and true man. Out of that confession and out of a submission to the scriptures, we get this place that allows us the unity to really do mission together. And that's what was so obvious in London. That's what London was all about. It was about creating the networks that are in fact going to create the mission or sustain the mission or strengthen the mission. Networks of seminaries, networks of missionaries, networks of clergy, networks of aid organizations, networks of bishops. That was what we used to do in our communion, and that's what I think God's favors on this.
Well, I find the most interesting part of GAFCON, and we only got to watch from the outside, is the request of the Archbishop of Canterbury to have an elected chairperson for the primates meetings.
Well, again,
That
I think when the primates met together in the primates council, what we said, we just looking at the situation, and again, given the fact that this is a moment between archbishops, the fact that we were meeting, I mean, the timing of this meeting was so prominent.
yeah,
Not just in terms of what's happened in the communion, not in just in terms of how to sort out all of the pieces of this Anglican mission crisis, but it gave us the freedom to actually comment on the way in which we ought to choose the next Archbishop of Canterbury. Some will remember that when Rowan Williams was chosen, members of the Church of England said over and over that first he's the Bishop of Canterbury, and second and most important, he's the primate of all England, so his responsibility is to lead the English church. And thirdly, and kind of marginally, he happens to be the first one and the one who leads the communion. Well, it's quite clear in this tenure that hasn't happened very well.
That didn't work.
It would seem that we thought that by just stating this, that again, this isn't 1900, this is 2012, that perhaps having essentially an hereditary chair of the communion isn't such a good idea anymore. That it might be all right to have the primates themselves choose from among them one who they think could best lead them. That isn't to undo the historic standing of Canterbury or its honorific place, but Canterbury becomes a bit more like the House of Windsor.
That's right.
Maybe that's okay. The Queen is a wonderful, popular figure. I mean, and she does a great job doing what she does in gathering the Commonwealth. But it's not 1900 anymore.
No, and it's strange to watch her defense of the church.
Yeah,
which is wonderful. And
so again, we spoke what we spoke just because this was a moment you could speak it now and influence folks in England. I mean, it made major headlines.
I saw on the Telegraph, BBC. You did the right thing at the right time.
Because, and this is the moment to do this. This isn't a criticism of a particular incumbent. They're between incumbents, so why not ask the question now? And it might be another 10 years before you get to ask the question again, and maybe it would be part of putting the communion back together, making the primates meeting work again. It's certainly not working in the present tenure, not working because, of course, the present Archbishop has not successfully had the trust of the leaders of many of the larger provinces of the communion.
Archbishop, you've been very gracious with your time today. Hopefully we've cleared up some of the questions people have been sending me and sending you about what's going on with GAFCON and AMiA and talking about the future that's going to happen in North Carolina. I wish you well, and thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, and thanks for what you and George do.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind.